Susan was only 13 the night everything changed. It was August 2013, and Hurricane Elena was heading straight for their coastal town in South Carolina. She watched from the living room as palm trees bent dangerously in the wind. Rain hit the windows so hard it sounded like stones. Her mother rushed around securing windows and moving furniture from the sliding doors. Her father worked with sandbags in the garage. Upstairs, her older sister Blessing cried on the phone to her boyfriend. "Mom, should I move my things upstairs?" Susan asked softly. "Susan, not now," her mother replied without looking at her. Susan tried again, watching water rise in the backyard. "But the weather guy said," "I said not now," her mother repeated sharply. Then Blessing came running downstairs, her face red and swollen. "Mom, my window is making that scary whistling noise. I can't sleep in there," she sobbed. Immediately their mother wrapped her arms around her. "Oh, sweetheart, of course. You shouldn't feel scared at home." Susan watched, the familiar ache returning. Blessing always came first. "She can sleep in my room," Susan offered. "I'll take hers tonight." Her father walked in soaked from the rain. "Nobody's switching rooms," he said firmly. "Blessing needs her space," he added. "She's studying for her SATs. She needs her materials around her." Susan blinked. "But Dad, the hurricane." "Susan, enough," her mother snapped. "Your sister is stressed. Her boyfriend may move away. She needs stability." Susan stared at them. "Then where will she sleep?" Her parents exchanged that look she knew too well, the look that meant trouble for her. Her mother sighed. "Susan, you'll need to give Blessing your room for a while." Susan froze. "What? Where am I supposed to sleep?" Her father didn't meet her eyes. "We'll set something up in the garage." "The garage?" Susan whispered. "Dad, it floods every time it rains." Her mother frowned. "Stop exaggerating. We'll put your mattress on cinder blocks. It's only for a few nights." But Susan knew better. "Please," she begged, "I'll sleep on the couch or in the hallway. Just not the garage during a hurricane." Blessing looked uncomfortable, but her mother squeezed her shoulder, reminding her of her place. "Susan, stop being selfish," her mother said. Within an hour, Susan watched her father move her mattress and clothes into the garage. Her mother handed her one thin blanket and a flashlight with dying batteries. By 8 p.m. the hurricane was raging. Power went out. Wind slammed into the garage door loudly and water seeped underneath, spreading quickly across the floor. Susan sat on her raised mattress, hugging her knees, listening to her family talking and laughing inside. They were probably playing board games like they always did during storms. Always together except her. By 9 p.m. water reached the cinder blocks. Susan knocked on the door. "Mom? Dad? The water's rising." No response. She knocked harder. "Please. It's flooding." Still nothing. Water soaked the mattress beneath her feet as she tried not to cry. Susan banged on the door again, louder this time. "Dad. The water is on the mattress now." Footsteps finally approached. The door cracked open and her father appeared, backlit by warm lantern light. Behind him, Susan saw her mother and Blessing wrapped in blankets on the couch. "Susan, stop making a fuss," her father said sharply. "You're fine." "But I'm standing in water," she cried. "The mattress is soaked. I'm freezing." His eyes hardened. "Your sister needs her space. She has always come first and she always will. Stop bothering us." He slammed the door and locked it again. Susan stood shaking in the dark, but the shaking wasn't only from cold. His words cut deeper than the wind outside. "She has always come first." She whispered them to herself, feeling something inside her break. Water reached her shins now, and the garage door rattled like it might burst open. Susan looked around desperately. She tried the garage door opener, but the power was gone. The manual release cord was underwater. She felt trapped. Completely trapped. Then she remembered one person, her Uncle Michael. He had always been kind, always asked how she was doing. He once told her, "If you ever need anything, call me." With trembling fingers, Susan pulled out her phone. Somehow it still had battery and 1 bar of signal. She dialed Uncle Michael. He answered on the second ring. "Hello. Uncle Michael," her voice cracked into a sob. "It's Susan. I need help. Please." Immediately his tone changed. "Susan? What's wrong? Where are you?" She cried out, I'm in the garage. It's flooding. They locked me out because Blessing wanted my room. The water is rising and they won't let me in. Silence filled the line for 2 long seconds, and then his voice returned, low and fierce. Susan, stay on the phone. I'm coming right now. But the hurricane, she tried to protest. I don't care about the hurricane, he snapped. You're a child. You're in danger. I'm leaving immediately. She heard a door slam, keys jingling and his engine starting. Keep talking to me, he said. Tell me exactly where you are in the garage. Susan described everything, the water level, the noises, the fear choking her voice. He listened carefully, cursing at the storm and at her parents. I'm about 10 minutes away, he said breathlessly. The roads are bad, but I'm coming. Hold on, Susan. Don't panic. I'm right here with you. 10 minutes felt like an hour, but finally Susan heard a truck pull into the driveway. Rain pounded the roof as Uncle Michael ran through the storm. She heard him pounding on the front door, shouting angrily at someone inside. Then the manual release on the garage door was yanked from outside, and the door began to rise. Wind and rain rushed in, but Susan didn't care. Uncle Michael came through the water toward her, soaked and furious. Come here, he said, lifting her into his arms. She clung to him, shaking as he carried her out toward the truck. As Uncle Michael carried Susan through the rain, she saw her parents standing in the doorway watching. Her mother covered her mouth while her father's face twisted in anger. You have no right, her father shouted. She's my daughter. Uncle Michael turned, his voice shaking with fury. A daughter you locked in a flooding garage during a hurricane? He yelled. What is wrong with you? Her mother called back. She was fine. She was being dramatic. Uncle Michael pointed at the water swirling around their feet. She's standing in a foot of water, Jennifer. She could have died. Blessing stepped behind their parents, her face pale. For a moment she looked guilty, but then her mother pulled her close, shielding her. Susan shivered as Uncle Michael opened the truck door and wrapped his jacket around her. Her father shouted, You can't just take her. Uncle Michael glared at him. I'm not taking her. I'm saving her. And if you come near her tonight, I'm calling the police. He set Susan in the passenger seat and buckled her in gently. When he turned back toward the house, Susan saw something in his eyes, a fierce protectiveness that she had never seen from her own parents. The drive to Uncle Michael's house was rough. Wind pushed the truck, rain slammed the windshield and branches scattered across the road. Through it all, he kept one hand on the wheel and one hand on Susan's arm, grounding her. You're safe now, he repeated softly. When they reached his home, far inland where flooding was milder, he carried her inside. The warmth hit her immediately. He grabbed towels, warm clothes, and then made hot chocolate as the storm raged outside. Susan sat at his kitchen table trembling. You're staying here, he said firmly. As long as you need. As long as you want. They'll want me back, Susan whispered, though her voice lacked certainty. Uncle Michael shook his head slowly. Let them try, he said. His voice softened as he sat across from her. Susan, what happened tonight wasn't okay. None of it was your fault. Susan felt her throat tighten. Why don't they love me? She whispered. What did I do wrong? Uncle Michael reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. Nothing. Nothing at all. Some people are broken in ways that have nothing to do with their children. Their behavior says everything about them and nothing about you. Susan cried, really cried, for the first time that night. The fear, the cold, the loneliness, the years of feeling like she mattered less than Blessing poured out of her. Uncle Michael stayed with her, handing her tissues, letting her take her time. When her sobs finally quieted, he said softly, You are worth love, Susan. You always were. The next morning he helped her call the school to explain she would be staying with him. Her parents showed up 3 days later when the roads cleared, shouting about rights and misunderstandings. Susan hid in her room, unable to face them. Uncle Michael handled everything. Susan heard the arguments through the door. Her father threatening legal action, her mother crying, saying they made a mistake. But Uncle Michael had taken photos of the flooded garage, kept her phone call record and contacted a lawyer. If you push this, he warned them, what you did will become public record. Her parents went silent. They left without her. Weeks passed. Blessing called once, her tone frustrated. Mom and Dad are upset. When are you coming home? Susan replied, I'm not. Blessing scoffed. You're being dramatic. Susan hung up. Blessing never called again. In the months that followed, Uncle Michael became Susan's guardian. She didn't understand all the court details, only that social workers came, papers were signed, and her parents didn't fight very hard. In truth, they seemed relieved. Susan had always been the one who didn't fit their idea of a perfect family. Blessing was easy, always praised, always celebrated. Susan required attention, empathy, and real parenting. Uncle Michael enrolled her in a new school. He learned to braid her hair by watching videos. He packed her lunches, helped her with homework, and came to every event. For the first time, Susan felt seen. "I'm proud of you," he told her constantly, words she had never heard from her parents. Susan began to grow in ways she never expected. She joined the debate team, volunteered at the animal shelter, and even started a coding club at school. She made honor roll every semester. Uncle Michael cheered for everything she achieved, big or small. During one school play, he stood up clapping so loudly that people turned to look. Susan felt warmth in her chest, something she once thought she'd never feel. For the first time in her life, success didn't feel like an accident. It felt earned. When college application season came, Uncle Michael sat with her night after night reading essays, researching scholarships, and encouraging her to aim high. "Money is not your worry," he said gently. "I'll find a way." But Susan was determined to win scholarships on her own. She didn't want anyone to say she got where she was because of pity. Months later, the letter arrived. Admission to Stanford with a full academic scholarship. Uncle Michael cried openly when he read it. "I knew you could do it," he whispered, hugging her tightly. "I always knew what you were capable of." Her parents somehow found out. Her mother called for the first time in 4 years. "Susan, honey, we heard about Stanford. We're so proud of you." The cheerful tone cut Susan like a knife. "No," she said coldly. "You don't get to be proud. You didn't raise me." Her mother stuttered. "We made a mistake. You made a choice," Susan corrected. "You locked me in a garage because Blessing wanted my room." Her voice steadied. "Uncle Michael raised me. He gets to be proud. You get nothing." She hung up and blocked the number, refusing to let them rewrite history. Susan thrived at Stanford. She majored in computer science and economics, pushing herself the same way she always had. She made real friends, people who liked her for who she was, not for what she could offer. She dated a little, though opening up fully was hard. Trust felt like something she had to relearn. Still, she built a life she was proud of. Her summer internships were intense but exciting, and each time she got a new opportunity, she called Uncle Michael first. He visited every few months, always bringing snacks, jokes, and a warm smile that made everything feel right. During one visit in her sophomore year, Uncle Michael watched her work late into the night on a project. "Susan," he said gently, "I'm proud of you. Not because of grades or awards. I'm proud of the woman you're becoming." She swallowed hard. "I learned from you," she whispered. But she noticed something else that night. He was coughing more, breathing harder, pausing often to rest. When she asked if he was all right, he brushed it off with a small smile. "Just getting older," he joked. But Susan knew something wasn't right. A quiet worry settled in her chest. By the start of her senior year, Uncle Michael couldn't hide it anymore. Doctors confirmed advanced lung cancer. Susan felt her world tilt. "I can take a leave from school," she insisted. "I'll come home and help." But he shook his head firmly. "You finish what you started," he said. "I'll still be here when you graduate." She visited as often as she could, calling every night. His voice grew weaker, but he never stopped encouraging her. "You're doing great, Susan," he would whisper. "Keep going. I'm with you." She cried often but always hid it from him. Uncle Michael insisted on attending her graduation despite needing an oxygen tank. When Susan walked the stage, he clapped with all the strength he had left. Afterward, he took her hands in his thin ones. "Susan," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." She tried to smile. "Uncle Michael, I've updated my will. Everything I own goes to you. My house, my savings, my investments." Susan felt tears rise. "I don't want to talk about that," she whispered. He squeezed her hands gently. "I need you to hear me. Raising you was the greatest gift of my life." "I mean it," he continued. "Before you, I was living without purpose. But you gave my life meaning. You made me a father without needing to be asked. Susan shook her head, tears falling freely. You saved me, she whispered. You saved me first. Uncle Michael smiled weakly. We saved each other. 3 months later he passed away peacefully in his sleep. Susan was beside him, holding his hand, telling him about a new job offer she'd received in Boston. He prayed he heard her. Losing him felt like losing the only true parent she'd ever known. The funeral was small. Just Susan, a few of his friends and distant relatives she barely knew. She stood at the front giving the eulogy, her voice breaking as she spoke about the man who had saved her life in every possible way. Then, in the middle of her speech, she saw them enter quietly through the back doors, her parents and Blessing. Her mother's hair was grayer, her father looked older, and Blessing wore expensive clothes that suggested success. Susan faltered for a moment but pushed through, refusing to acknowledge them. This moment was for Uncle Michael, not for them. After the service they approached her. Her mother reached for a hug but Susan stepped back. Susan, her mother whispered, eyes full of tears. We're so sorry for your loss. Michael was a good man. Susan replied calmly. He was the best man. He was the only parent who loved me. Her father frowned. That's not fair. We tried. Susan stared into his eyes. You locked me in a flooding garage because Blessing wanted my room. She kept her voice low so only they could hear. You didn't try. You gave up. And Michael picked up the pieces. Her mother began to cry harder. We made a mistake. You made a choice, Susan interrupted. You chose Blessing's comfort over my safety. Blessing stepped forward, her voice soft. Susan, it's been 12 years. People grow. Families should forgive each other. Susan didn't flinch. You knew I was out there. You heard me crying for help. You said nothing because it benefited you. Blessing's face crumpled but Susan continued. That wasn't youth. That was your character. She stepped away from them. I need to speak with real mourners now. She turned her back, ending the conversation. A week later she arrived at the lawyer's office for the reading of Uncle Michael's will. She didn't expect her parents or Blessing to be there, but they sat in the waiting room looking nervous. Why are you here? Susan asked coldly. Her mother replied softly, the lawyer said we should attend. They entered the office. Mr. Patterson, an older man with kind eyes, opened a folder. I'll get straight to the point, he said. Michael left his entire estate to Susan. His home, all savings and investments totaling $2.3 million, his vehicle and all personal belongings. Her parents gasped. Her father blurted out, Michael had that kind of money? Mr. Patterson nodded calmly. He lived modestly and invested wisely. Susan watched their shock with a steady expression. But the lawyer wasn't done. Michael also left letters for each of you. He handed one to Susan's father first. Her father read it aloud. Michael condemning him for locking Susan in the garage, for failing as a parent, for choosing convenience over safety. Her father's face drained of color. Then her mother received her letter. Another painful truth about abandoning her child. Blessing's turn came next and tears streamed down her face as she read her own. Finally, Mr. Patterson handed Susan an envelope with her name written in Uncle Michael's handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. My dearest Susan, she read aloud, her voice trembling. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Raising you was the greatest privilege of my life. You were my daughter in every way that mattered. Tears slid down her cheeks as she continued. I leave you everything not because of money but because I want you to understand your worth. You deserved love, protection and care. You didn't receive it from your birth family but you will never doubt it again. She continued reading as her parents watched silently. To your parents I say this in front of you. Susan is the best thing you ever created and you threw her away. You traded a daughter who would have loved you forever for the convenience of keeping Blessing comfortable. That is your loss. Her mother sobbed louder. Her father stared at the floor, unable to look at anyone. Susan read the final lines slowly. Susan, live boldly. Build a beautiful life. And every time your parents hear of your success, let it remind them that they had nothing to do with it. I love you, Michael. Susan folded the letter carefully and placed it back on the table. Her mother reached toward her with shaking hands. Susan, please. We're sorry. Truly sorry. Susan looked at her with calm eyes. I know you're sorry, she said softly. But regret doesn't rebuild what you destroyed. Her father finally spoke. We want to fix this. Give us a chance. Susan shook her head slowly. No. You taught me my worth didn't matter. Michael taught me the truth. I'm choosing his version. Blessing stepped forward timidly. Susan, can we start over? Please. Susan didn't hesitate. No. You lost that chance. Blessing's face twisted with hurt. You're being cruel. Susan stood up, gathering her things. No. I'm being honest. Cruel was leaving a 13-year-old in a flooding garage during a hurricane. Her mother whispered, we would give anything to change that night. Susan looked at her carefully. Good. Then live with it. Because I did. She nodded respectfully to Mr. Patterson. Please send any documents to my new office. Without another glance at her parents, she walked out. For the first time in her life, she felt light. She felt free. He felt like the chapter that began in that garage had finally closed. 3 months later, Susan sat in her new office. The office she purchased using part of the inheritance. The sign on the wall read, "The Michael Grant Foundation for Found Family." She smiled every time she saw it. The foundation had already helped 7 teenagers find safe homes, funded therapy sessions, and provided college scholarships. Susan reviewed a file for a young girl named Lila whose parents had abandoned her. We'll get you somewhere safe, Susan whispered to the folder. You're not alone. Helping these kids didn't erase her past, but it transformed it. Her pain became purpose. Her scars became strength. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her mother. One of 47 attempts to reach her. She didn't open it. Her parents had sent long emails, short texts, even a letter through their lawyer. Blessing had also tried reaching her, sometimes apologizing, sometimes begging, sometimes blaming. Susan deleted all of it. She no longer felt anger. Just distance. Necessary distance. Family isn't who hurts you, she reminded herself. Family is who lifts you up. Michael had lifted her higher than she ever imagined. Now she was doing the same for others. That was the life she chose, and she felt proud of it. Later that afternoon, a teen from the shelter visited her office for a meeting. The girl hesitated at the door. Miss Susan. Susan smiled warmly. Come in. You're safe here. The girl sat nervously. My parents said I was a burden, she whispered. Susan felt something deep inside her shift. You're not a burden, she said gently. You're worth more than you know. And we're going to help you. The girl started crying softly. Susan handed her a tissue, feeling Michael's presence beside her. Someone opened a door for me when mine was locked, Susan added. Now I'm opening one for you. After the girl left, Susan stepped outside onto the balcony overlooking the city. The wind was calm, nothing like the hurricane that once changed her life. She closed her eyes and remembered being 13, wet, cold, scared, pounding on a door while her father yelled that Blessing came first. She remembered Michael bursting through the storm to save her. She whispered into the quiet air, "Thank you for choosing me." A soft breeze brushed her cheek and it felt like an answer. She breathed deeply, feeling peace settle over her. She wasn't broken anymore. She wasn't abandoned. She was built stronger. That evening, Susan finalized a new program offering emergency housing for teens in crisis. As she signed the documents, she imagined how proud Michael would be. You told me to live boldly, she murmured. I'm trying. Her assistant knocked softly. Another family wants help. Should I schedule them? Susan nodded. Yes. Every one of them deserves a chance. She believed that with her whole heart. No child should ever stand alone in fear the way she once did. No child should ever be treated as second place. Her mission wasn't revenge anymore. It was healing for others and for herself. When the office finally quieted, Susan turned off the lights and stood in the doorway. I made it, Michael, she whispered softly. I really made it. She walked outside under the evening sky, feeling steady, whole, and finally free. Her parents' voices no longer echoed in her mind. Blessing's favoritism no longer shaped her worth. The storm that once threatened to destroy her had instead forged her into someone unbreakable. Susan unlocked her car, glancing back at the glowing foundation sign. This is my family now, she said. And with calm confidence she drove into her new and beautiful life.